Welcome to Will It Build, the series where I take your builds from my YouTube comments and Discord server and put them to the test to see if they are the real deal. If it's solid, then I'll gift you 1,000 silver, and if it's really something special, you'll be featured in a dedicated build video for your submitted build. So comment yours below so we can answer the question, will it build? Welcome to your favorite Destiny build series on YouTube, Will It Build? Today, we have a very interesting build called Shoot Your Friends, which I feel like sometimes we all feel like we want to shoot our friends in-game. But before we get to the build, I first want to talk about the giveaway for today's video. The giveaway for today's video is a Star Splash emblem, completely 100% for free. In the previous video, I mentioned that we were giving away some Star Splash emblems for anyone who donated $25 or more to our charity Bungie Game to Give page, which we are still doing that, by the way. It's linked in the description. But for this episode, I'm going to be giving one away completely for free for those of you who maybe are interested in doing the charity donation, or maybe for those who financially aren't able to do so, which is completely fine, by the way. I still want people to be able to participate in a Star Splash emblem giveaway, so we're going to do one for free under this video, and I will tell you how to enter in just a moment. Because first, I have unfortunate or fortunate news, depending on who you are and how you like it. I didn't know if I wanted to keep my mustache or not, so we played a little game in my live stream, twitch.tv/Mactics, where we record these live to determine whether or not we would keep it or shave it, and the verdict was shave. So before we get started with this episode... Speaking of the giveaway, by the way, to enter in to potentially win the giveaway, all you got to do is comment down below what you prefer. Do you like Mustache Mac? Do you like a little bit of shade? Or what you're about to see, since everyone live in the chat is voting for it, completely baby's bottom smooth. How are you feeling? So, now you get to vote. Maybe we'll give away two. Let's give away two of them, actually. I'll pick two commenters. Getting back to the build, sorry. Shoot Your Friends Solar Combat Medic. Shooting friends for fun and profit by Cyber Pope, although the submitter's name is Magnus, so maybe they have two different names. I don't really know. We're going to call them Magnus. So for the super, they're putting us with Well of Radiance. We've got Healing Rift. We have got a melee preference up to us. And for the grenade, they're sticking us with the fusion grenade. So we'll go ahead and hop on in here. We got the Healing Rift. For the melee, I think I'm going to start off with Incinerator Snap. I feel like Incinerator Snap is generally a little bit better for PvE, but we'll potentially mix this up as we get going. And they, of course, had us with the Fusion Grenade. As far as aspects, we have Touch of Flame and Heat Rises. So we'll swap out our Icarus Dash for Heat Rises right there. And of course, Touch of Flame, when it comes to the Fusion Grenade, it just makes the Fusion Grenade explode twice. Every Fusion Grenade is equivalent to 2 Fusion Grenades, effectively, when we're running Touch of Flame. For our fragments, we have the Ember of Benevolence, which they say is necessary. So they have a different spread of fragments. So they say the Benevolence and Torches are necessary, whereas Searing and Mercy, they simply recommend. So I suppose if you really wanted to, you could put something different in there if you really wanted to. The Ember of Benevolence, one of my favorite solar fragments, actually, applying Restoration, Cure, or Radiant to allies, grants increased grenade melee and class ability regeneration for a short duration. It's actually a pretty significant amount as well. We see that whenever you do any of those things, you actually get a 400% additional base grenade melee and class ability regeneration for 6 seconds. It's not 3, that red number's for PvP. 6 seconds in PvEs. 400% bonus, pretty huge. So Ember of Benevolence, and then they add us with the Ember of Torches, so that anytime we hit an enemy with our powered melee attack, we receive the Radiant buff, which ties in directly into the Ember of Benevolence, of course, which is, anytime we make our allies radiant, this is going to be important because that is what will proc Ember of Benevolence most frequently, I would imagine. Right off the bat, kind of makes me wonder, do we want to instead start with Celestial Fire as opposed to Incinerator Snap? Because Celestial Fire has so much better range that it's going to make our effective range of being able to hit enemies with Celestial Fire and thus being able to proc Ember of Torches and thus proccing Ember of Benevolence so much easier. So I think I'm actually going to instead start with Celestial Fire instead of starting with Incinerator Snap. They recommended Searing and Mercy. So if we come down here, we're going to look for the Ember of Searing, which I believe is this one, right? Defeating scorched targets grants melee energy and creates a fire sprite. And then the Ember of Mercy, when you revive an ally, you and other nearby allies gain restoration, which again is going to proc our Ember of Benevolence, and picking up a fire sprite will also grant us restoration. If I recall correctly, I believe you get it for about 3 seconds when you're using the Ember of Mercy, so we'll go ahead and set up with that. I have an idea about changing those. We're going to use their recommended ones first, but I think I'm going to end up changing these, and you guys will see why once we get into it. As far as the exotics go, they're setting us up with Eye of Another World for the exotic armor piece and Lumina for the exotic weapon. So Eye of Another World, if we look carefully, highlights priority targets and improves the regeneration speed of your grenade, melee, and rift abilities. Provides a small benefit to the airborne effectiveness out of all weapons. So my number one issue with Destiny is there's no numbers in the game. It never actually tells you how much. That's why I love the Destiny data compendium so much, because we get to come in here, we get to search for Eye of Another World, and we get to see exactly how much our regenerations are being improved. So if we look here at Eye of Another World, passively grants 50% additional base grenade, melee, and class regeneration rate, and plus 15 airborne effectiveness. So that's what our Eye of Another World does. And then when we look at Lumina specifically, you'll notice here that I do not have the catalyst for Lumina. I feel that that's not going to be too much of an issue in terms of making this build unusable for me, because the catalyst simply makes it so that every final blow you get 2 remnants instead of 1. I think that'll definitely make my Lumina capabilities a little less effective, but I don't think it's going to ruin the build. So if you watching this at home are considering using this build and you also do not have the catalyst for Lumina, I'll let you know whether or not it's a problem. I can't imagine that it will be a problem. I think you'll still be perfectly fine. Kills with this weapon leave behind remnants. Absorbing a remnant converts your next hip fire shot. So if you don't ADS, you just fire from the hip. It seeks an ally and gives them a noble round and partially fills the magazine. And the cool thing about noble rounds is that it gives both you and your ally a weapon damage bonus when hitting them. Now, of course, like we've been talking about Destiny, it doesn't really tell you how much. Blessing of the Sky, which is what you receive when you get hit by the noble round, you get a 35% damage buff for 11 seconds, which, if I'm not mistaken, is the highest damage buff available in the game. I'm actually not 100% sure if it stacks with things like Radiant or not. That'll definitely be something that we want to try out. As far as the rest of our setup goes, I do believe we need to get some armor mods on. So we have Heavy Ammo Finder, Heavy Scout, and Harmonic Siphon. Heavy Finder, Heavy Scout, and Harmonic Siphon. And then looks like we can fit maybe, I think I'll go a Discipline mod here so we can have our Fusion Grenade up a little bit more frequently. On the gloves, we have Grenade Kickstart, Impact Induction, and Firepower. So we're going pretty heavy on the gloves mods. There we go. For the chest, they're just recommending whatever resistances we want to rock and roll with. So we'll come down here. I'll probably just go a concussive dampener, a harmonic resistance, and then maybe an arc resistance. And then for the boots, they have us on Innervation, Absolution, and Orbs of Restoration. We have Innervation for grenade cooldown, Absolution so that we get ability energy to all 3 of our abilities whenever we pick up an Orb of Power, and then Orbs of Restoration. Picking up an Orb of Power grants a small amount of energy to your ability with the least energy. And finally, for our class item, Bomber, Outreach, and Time Dilation. I don't really know why they're recommending Time Dilation here, because typically you only want Time Dilation when you have Decaying Armor Charge, but you only get Decaying Armor Charge when you have Blue Armor Charge mods. We don't have any blue armor charge mods here, so I think Time Dilation is literally useless. You never know with Destiny, sometimes there's bugged or unexpected interactions, so maybe there could be something that Time Dilation is doing. Maybe it lets you get like Blessing of the Sky for a little bit longer or something like that. I don't really know. We'll leave it on just for the beginning, but I have a feeling we're going to replace that pretty quickly with something else, since as far as I can tell, Time Dilation is doing absolutely nothing for us. So we have the Bomber. We're going ahead and go pick up the Outreach. We'll leave the Time Dilation for now. And I think this is our final mod spread. This is our final subclass spread. I'm noticing they didn't really recommend any weapons for us other than the Lumina. So we'll go ahead and grab my Apex Predator over here. And then I love running my Blinding Grenade Launcher. So we'll get the Blinding GL on, we'll get the Apex Predator on, and I'm thinking right out of the gate, if my primary weapon is going to be Lumina, I probably don't want to be running Harmonic Siphon. I instead will probably want to be running Kinetic Siphon. So I'm going to go ahead and make that swap right out of the gate, because in my current form, the only way I'll be able to make orbs through that Harmonic Siphon mod is with double kills with the Disorienting Grenade Launcher, which isn't really going to happen very often. We're going to rock and roll with our friends Lethal Pacifist and Mini Chabs, who are watching the live stream twitch.tv/Mactics right when we started. Thanks to those two for hopping in, because we have a bunch of Screeves chilling, but there's our remnants that we're creating, and we can run around. Looks like they kind of fly to us when we get close enough. And then if you look underneath my gun, where there's kind of 6 circles right there, that is the ones that are filled in. That's how many noble rounds or healing rounds I have available to me. So if I go ahead and shoot my teammate right here, it'll snap to him. And then as you can see on the left side of my screen, I get Blessing of the Sky for what looked to be about 9 seconds. And what I also noticed is that I got Ember of Benevolence as well. So it looks like anytime I hit an ally with Lumina, I also proc Ember of Benevolence, which is actually really, really cool. It means that we're effectively going to 100% of the time have the Ember of Benevolence active. So we're basically going to have grenades up nonstop, melees up nonstop, and riffs up nonstop. First things first, though, like I said, I want to test out the damage. So I'm going to try and... So we have 16,087. And then if I shoot one of my allies and get noble rounds for myself, we'll do 21,717. And then if I shoot my ally again and get radiant on top of it, then we're still at 21,717. So it looks like it does not stack with radiant. And we're going to continuously try and fire noble rounds off at our teammates. Even if they don't necessarily need it, we just want to fire it off so that we get the Ember of Benevolence procced consistently. So that we're always having much better grenade recharge. So I can kind of use my teammates as sources to fuel my ability regenerations, since I can just shoot them to proc the Ember of Benevolence. And right out of the gate, as we saw on the Destiny Data Compendium, we get Blessing of the Sky for 11 seconds whenever we shoot an enemy with a noble round, as you can see right there. And it looks like it is, in fact, 11 on the screen, which tells me that I don't think time dilation is doing anything for us whatsoever here. So I think we'll swap this over to Reaper, since the idea with this build is we're getting all 3 of our abilities up so frequently. I like the idea of having Reapers that we're constantly casting our class ability, so we can use that cast of it to always be making orbs with those Reaper kills. I also want to kind of pay attention to how close I am to getting the Catalyst, because if you remember from looking earlier, when we looked in here, healing allies is what progressed the Catalyst. I was at 9%, now I'm at 14 already, so I think you get that Catalyst done pretty quickly. So right now I have 4 noble rounds. If I switch to my grenade launcher, and I, for example, one shoot it there, and then I pull my Lumina back out, I still have the 4 noble rounds. So noble rounds stay no matter what, as far as I can tell on the left side of the screen. They don't have a timer on them either, so if you have a noble round, it is there until you use it, which... Again, pretty nice. So we have answered the first 2 questions of the build so far. Now we're at the first boss. Let's just use this time to focus entirely on just killing the boss. So first things first, try and heal our ally. I'm going to keep shooting noble rounds at them, so we get our Ember of Benevolence. Ember of Benevolence lasts for 6 seconds, remember? So ideally, we kind of want to have a noble round on our ally every 6 seconds to take full advantage of the Ember of Benevolence. And then we can hop down here. We can go ahead and plop a Well of Radiance down as well. I'm wondering if it's just weapon damage that is increased by the Lumina, or if it is all damage. If it's all damage, that would be kind of crazy. I think it has to be just weapon damage, right? If it was all damage increased by 35%, that would be ridiculous. Although I will say right out the gate, we are kind of cooking this boss. And you're getting kills while under the effects of Heat Rises. It not only increases the duration of your Heat Rises buff, but it also gives you melee energy back as well. So if I throw my melee and you watch when I'm killing enemies while I'm airborne, I get a big old chunk of melee energy back, which is really cool because then I can basically spam my melee. It works for all types of kills as well, not just weapon kills. So I can throw my grenade at these enemies. Pretty much always want to be airborne because I can pretty much have maximum ability uptime, which is pretty cool. Go ahead and start shooting some noble rounds at my allies. Get a little melee off. I'm in floating mode. And right there, I believe I should have 2 noble rounds, which is great. And we still have Heat Rises active. That's the same Heat Rises buff I had initially. And the cool thing about Heat Rises is that if you stay completely stationary, you will never float down. But if you do a little jump, and then stop your jump, and then reactivate your jump, you will just stay airborne, completely still. Which is really fun, because then I can throw melees, and I don't even have to move at all. I can throw melees, kill enemies, and then gives me so much melee energy back. And then we're out of ability energy right now, so let's go ahead and get some healing rounds on our teammates to get that Ember of Benevolence going. And then as you can see, our melee ability is just absolutely getting coming off cooldown so quickly, which is really nice for this build as well because we have impact induction on the glove, so every time we hit an enemy with our melee ability, it's going to give us a chunk of that grenade back as well, so we can get even more fusion grenades off. And those fusion grenades are absolutely amazing in this build because we're running firepower so that we make orbs every time we get a grenade kill. We have touch and flame, so all the fusion grenades explode twice and do a ton of damage. And we have grenade kickstart, so they come back even more quickly because they eat our armor charge stacks to get a little bit of energy refunded all at the same time. Okay, we have 3 noble rounds. No! Now we have 0 noble rounds. Something I'm wondering right now is if I would like Phoenix Dive better on this than the Healing Rift, because since we're using Heat Rises, when Heat Rises is active and we use our Phoenix Dive, we get Restoration, which would be a really, really nice source of healing. I'm gonna try and make sure we get these noble rounds on my teammates as well. Maybe get a little fusion grenade onto this wizard. Let's get this Heat Rises going again. And I want to stack it up by getting these airborne kills. Blind this wizard, and then I'm gonna shoot a noble round at my teammate, give him a weapon damage boost, keep him healthy, and get my Ember of Benevolence. And I'll shoot a noble round all the way over to him. They really track pretty hard, so you don't even have to really try to get the noble round onto your teammates. I'll give both of my teammates noble rounds right there, give them both a 35% damage buff, and I give myself a 35% damage buff as well. Which works really nice because I'm also getting another 35% damage buff thanks to Bait and Switch on my Apex Predator. And we have 4 noble rounds right now, so I'll give both my teammates a little noble round action. Blessing of the Sky for 11 seconds for all of us. And then get Blessing of the Sky again. Definitely, I mean, if you can remember to weave in those noble rounds, like, you juice up not only your damage, but your teammates' damage pretty significantly. So if we come over here, we're going to swap her to Phoenix Dive. While he dive to the ground and create a burst of solar light that cures nearby allies, it'll also cure yourself. But the really cool thing about this is if we use this and we hit an ally with it, that'll also proc the Ember of Benevolence. Additionally, while Heat Rises is active, you gain Restoration while diving and Scorch targets upon landing. If we're going to make this change, I feel like having your class ability up as much as humanly possible becomes a lot more important to this build. So another change I want to make is change one of their recommended fragments over to something else. I think that getting Restoration from picking up fire sprites is not going to be as necessary anymore since we have a new source of pretty reliable healing that is going to be up pretty frequently. So what I instead want to change this to is the Ember of Singeing so that our class ability recharges faster whenever we scorch targets, which is going to be pretty frequently because we are always scorching targets with our Celestial Fire, which is up so often thanks to getting airborne kills while under the effects of Heat Rises. And we obviously have our Fusion Grenade, which scorches targets as well. Defeating scorched targets grants melee energy. I don't think that's super necessary because we're getting plenty from Heat Rises already. You know what? I think instead what we'll want to do is we'll want to go with the Ember of Solace so that our Radiant and Restoration effects have increased duration. I feel like that'll feel a lot better. Let's get that grenade out. Looks like we have our ally down, so we're going to back it up a little bit. Maybe get a disorienting GL shot out. And then we're going to try and always make sure that we have those noble rounds on our teammates to make sure. The key to this build that I'm noticing is just keep Ember of Benevolence up all the time. As much as humanly possible, keep Ember of Benevolence up. And then once you get really good at keeping Ember of Benevolence up permanently by always having a noble round on your teammates, the next step is to try and always have Heat Rises up. Which is admittedly a little harder. And then when we have Heat Rises and we get a little weak, we can go ahead and hit our Phoenix Dive, and we get Restoration ×2 for what looks to be about 5 seconds, which is more than enough time to fully heal you, even in the most dangerous of situations. So we're going to go ahead and give a noble round to our teammate, and then we'll maybe fire a noble round out there to make sure our teammate is completely safe. I'm liking this build a lot because it feels like something that has a lot of room for absolute mastery, and it's probably one of the more unique play styles to play Destiny. You're definitely playing a lot more like a medic, as opposed to, say, maybe you would traditionally play the game. And you have, like, you know, you have a lot of room for, like, mastery because there's so many different things you can do with this build. You can make sure your teammates are always having 35% extra damage, giving yourself 35% extra damage, throwing a bunch of grenades, using heat rises to stay airborne so that you maintain heat rises and get a ton of melee ability energy back. Making sure you maintain heat rises so that when you Phoenix dive, you get restoration as opposed to just a cure. Making sure that you're always getting armor charge stacks to have a bunch of fusion grenades available. Just a ton you can do with this. I will say, though, I think that this build would definitely feel a lot better for those who have the Catalyst. So I would highly recommend taking a second to maybe go into Shirochi and with a buddy and just farming out the Catalyst by continuously killing a bunch of enemies and getting those remnants and spamming those healing rounds on teammates. Throughout this run, I began at 9%. Now I'm at about 29%. So I would say probably about a half hour of just consistently blasting enemies and then spamming all 6 of the healing rounds at your teammate. First things first, I need to get a remnant. 10, 7, 60. Then if we hit a teammate, 14, 5, 26. And then if we hit a teammate and get radiant, 14, 5, 26. So Blessing of the Sky and Radiant 100% do not stack. Blessing of the Sky just completely overwrites the Radiant. Go. Let's get a quick dive down. Trying to find my teammates. Gonna hit them both with our Blessing of the Sky buff. That gives me Blessing of the Sky. We'll proc the bait and switch as well. Look at the damage. Maybe clear out a couple of extra harpies before we do our next DPS run. Get a grenade down. That should clear a ton of those ads. Oh, never mind. The goblin that was sprinting towards me ate it. Whoa! There's the wyvern. Let's get Blessing of the Sky on both of our teammates. Proc bait and switch. I mean, look at how much damage those 2 rockets alone did to that Minotaur's health bar. Let's get Blessing on the Sky on a teammate again. Did I say Minotaur? I meant Wyvern. So we're going to go ahead. I'm going to try to get my Heat Rises loop going again. I feel like I've been pretty bad about that for this particular encounter. Make sure we remain floating. Let's get a noble round on our teammate. Get our melee off, and then that should allow us to... We're going to remain airborne. Look at how much melee energy we get back. Have the whole thing back already. And I'm not really worried right now, because even if I get in a tricky spot with my health, all I have to do is Phoenix dive. Noble rounds on both my teammates. Little double fusion grenade. And that dude's absolutely cooked. Maybe get that Celestial Fire going. See, I love Celestial Fire right there, because the Incinerator Snap would not have reached those enemies. Without a doubt. Let's get some noble rounds on our teammates. I'm trying to maintain heat rises. I want to try and get airborne kills as well so I can get my melee ability back so we can scorch some targets. Remember, scorching targets will give us our class ability back even more quickly. Need to get a couple kills to extend our heat rises. Maybe get a melee down, get that wizard. Let's get some noble rounds on our teammates also. So we're having that Ember of Benevolence going. Can get a blinding GL shot or disorienting grenade shot. That Nova Bomb was on a mission. So right when I get revived, let's hop up and get this bad boy down. And we're getting a little weak, but we have that Phoenix dive, so that we can just go ahead and hop down onto the ground. Okay, we're gonna wait for all our teammates to get in here. Let's open up. Let's make this one perfect. Start with the heat rises, get some kills to make sure that we get our heat rises extended. And we also get a couple kills with our Lumina to make sure we get our noble rounds. Go ahead and run around and pick them all up. Looks like we have 6 noble rounds right now, which is perfect. maybe even kill a couple of extra guys. That allows us to get a couple noble rounds out for free. And let's get a disorienting grenade over on this wizard, get our double exploding fusion grenade on him as well. And we get a little weak here, but luckily we're on heat rises. And we have our Phoenix Dive up, so we go ahead and just hit that real quick. That'll give us a restoration buff for 5 seconds, and we're completely safe. Have our grenade back up already. Get some more noble rounds in the field to our teammates. We get our Ember of Benevolence going. We keep them healed, and we give them a 35% damage buff. And then we're going to remain airborne, kill a couple of these trash mobs to get some more noble rounds. Try and fire off some noble rounds before we pick these off. Get a little fusion grenade off. And we're going to see how quickly we can burn this boss with some Blessing of the Sky buffs. And once he does, I'm going to go ahead and hit both of my teammates with Blessing of the Sky. Hit this boss with everything to proc our bait and switch. And let's get Blessing of the Sky on our teammates again. And the boss ran away. We did too much damage to him. He got scared. And we can restock on our noble rounds. This build benefits a ton from having some trash mobs up, so that you always have something to get your noble rounds from. Getting a little rocket off right there, preparing for the boss to teleport to middle. Okay, let's give both of our teammates Blessing. Here the boss comes back to middle, so I have Blessing of the Sky as well, as do both of them. And let's re-up Blessing of the Sky on both of them. I wonder if you can hit 2 teammates with Blessing of the Sky at the same time. That's probably something worth exploring. I never considered that. I doubt it, right? That would be crazy strong. Speaking of crazy strong, we absolutely eviscerated that boss. And just do me a favor. If you get Blessing of the Sky from this, crouch. Okay, so I can see visually, actually. I can see only one of them glow. So if you pay close attention, if they stand together again. Nonetheless, will it build? Absolutely, yes. That was a very, very fun and unique way to play the game. Overall, the whole idea of this subclass setup, Lumina as a whole, as a weapon, and, you know, this mod setup, I liked it a lot. I thought it was fantastic. I think it will definitely build. So thank you so much for the submission. If you watching at home want your build reviewed in a video like this, make sure to submit it in the Will It Build channel in my Discord server, linked in the description, and I'll check it out. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, have a great day.